Good morning everybody, welcome back to Windermere. It's a beautiful morning this morning. You may remember I was here a couple of weeks ago and I was filming a video about the process that I go through when I take a photograph. And again, it was another glorious morning, but I was a little bit too focused on the video side of things, and I came to this composition which I'd never shot before, this composition of the boathouse which is near Wray Castle. And although I got quite a nice shot, I wasn't entirely happy with the composition. I think it was a little bit too tight. I would like to shot a little bit wider. I was shooting at about 50mm, and I actually think in hindsight, having looked at the image, I needed to be shooting at something like 35mm. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm just coming back to correct that mistake that I made a couple of 3 weeks ago. I was a little bit late getting here this morning. I was actually here about 45 minutes after sunrise. I've been working quite hard this week. I've spent most of the week with a lovely couple called Stephen and Barbara and their spaniel Digby, and I've been helping them to get to some of my favourite locations in the Lake District and really make the most of their time here. They're up for the week. And that's involved a lot of early starts and involved some quite long days, so I've been pretty tired. And so rather than setting my alarm, I just allowed my natural body clock to wake me up when it was ready. And like I say, that was about 45 minutes later than I needed to be. But that's okay, that's not a big problem. Because I'm shooting away from the sun, I've actually got the sun off to the right hand side. What I wanted was for the sun to break the horizon and to put some light on that scene, and that's exactly what's happened. So it hasn't worked out too badly for me. I am still working on my series of images for Instagram that are supposed to help people, to teach people, to share some of my theories and philosophies around photography. And I've been looking for one that I can use, an image that I can use to feature, to talk about reflections and how I like to shoot reflections. So I'm going to grab a quick portrait orientation shot of this that's going to be perfect for Instagram. There's actually a couple of swans here, and people have asked me in the past why I don't include more waterfowl in my images, and the truth of the matter is they are never doing what I want them to do, the little so-and-sos. Now, it's actually swan mating season at the moment, and when I arrived they were having some special time, which I rather interrupted, and just afterwards they did that thing where they butt their chests up together and they create that beautiful heart shape with their necks. And if I could have captured that, that would have made a fantastic image. But of course, now that I'm here and set up, they're just spending most of the time with their tails in the air. It is so peaceful here this morning. All I've got is the chirping of the birds and some crows and a slight hum of the traffic on the road on the A591 on the other side of the lake. I haven't seen a single soul since I arrived here, despite the fact that Windermere is probably the busiest lake in the Lake District, and by some margin I should think. And I've always been drawn to lakes. I've always been drawn to shooting across expanses of water and shooting reflections. It's what I love to shoot the most. I'm originally from Buckinghamshire. I was born in Aylesbury, and I grew up in a little village on the Buckinghamshire-Hertfordshire border called Marsworth. And down there are some reservoirs, and I think they're there to service the Grand Union Canal. They're not for domestic water supply. And that's where I first sort of started my photography, shooting those. And whenever I am looking for a new location or I go somewhere new, and I'm exploring the OS maps as I do, I'm generally looking for water, somewhere where I can shoot across the water. And this is what I love. If you take someone like James Burns, he loves to get up into the mountains, he loves to do dramatic mountain scenes, but I love this sort of thing. Really peaceful, really calm images with some water and some reflections. Now, because I've been working so hard just recently, I haven't made a lot of progress on my Hand of Man project. If you don't know what that is, I'm currently working on a project that is designed to showcase the positive impact that man has had on the Lake District landscape. And as I say, because I've been so busy, I haven't made an awful lot of progress. Now, as with most of my photography, I plan everything out, and I've planned out that project, and I have a list. I think it's about 15 to 20 locations that I've got planned for that I think fit the brief. But this boathouse isn't one of them, and I wonder if I should include it. So with the Hand of Man project in mind, I thought I'd try a shot that made a bit more of the boathouse, and so what I did was I put the telephoto lens on, and I'm at about 100mm, trying to make the boathouse much more prominent in the frame. And what I like about this composition is it's quite balanced. You have the boathouse on the left hand side, and then you have these two trees which are quite strong as well on the right hand side, and that balances everything out. But for me, this shot doesn't really work, and the big problem that I've got is I've got a big area of kind of empty dead space right in the centre of the composition. And for that reason, I don't think this shot works. One thing that we should put into our images, so that they're a little bit more than just snapshots, is some sort of story or some feeling of emotion. And for me, what I like to convey is a feeling of peace and of tranquility and of calm. And that's probably why I like to shoot water, particularly on still days. It's ever such a calming experience being here. Photography for me, before I went full-time, really was a release, an escape from the modern world, which is why I like to come out in the mornings when it's calm and peaceful, and just to escape that hustle and bustle. And that's also why I'm not too upset this morning that it's quite blue skies. I think that this image still works, despite the fact that I don't have a particularly interesting sky. I mean, let's be honest, the interest is in the boathouse and in the reflections and the trees, and I don't see that adding a dramatic sky to this image would add anything particularly when I want that feeling of peace and tranquility. I also think it's quite an optimistic image. Because it's got light on it, it's kind of quite warm and, as I say, peaceful. And that has a real feel to it that I don't think a real heavy sky or even a bright sunrise or something like that would add anything to. And so for that reason, blue sky this morning, I'm okay with that. Now, it isn't just what I like to shoot or the emotion that I'm trying to convey in my images. It's also how I shoot. Now, what I like to do is when I come on location, I like to know the composition that I'm going to go for. And once I've got that then gives me the opportunity to go off and explore something else. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I haven't had to come very far, not even 100 yards. All I've done is just come to this other side of this boathouse from where I was shooting earlier. And I found a little wall or ramp or something like that. And the water's reasonably high on it, but there are a few little bits of it exposed, and that gives you a line of what look like stones that lead the eye off into the distance. And I've got a lovely little composition. It's still ever so calm, so I've got the reflections across the other side of the lake. And I've also got the headland, a little bit of land that was sticking out into the lake that I was shooting earlier, but I haven't got the boathouse in it. I don't want to include the boathouse. It's all about the view off into the reflections. And yeah, it's a nice simple shot. I've put the horizon on the top third, the upper third. and then that's creating a lot of empty space at the bottom where those stones are leading the eye up. And you know, for a first attempt, I think it's not a bad little composition. I'm going to finish the day with a shot that I took last time I was here. When I finished filming, I packed up all my gear, and as I was setting off, I spotted this other composition. So this image that I'm about to show you didn't feature in the last video. When I finished shooting, what happened was the wind picked up, it broke the surface of the lake, all the reflections went. But as I was heading off, I clocked these trees here, close to where I'd been shooting, and I thought there was a composition there. So I set up the camera and I grabbed a shot. Now, because the reflections had gone from the water, I decided to use a long exposure and to blur the water out. And I really like that shot, really like that. Now, a lot of people don't like long exposures. They don't know why we do them. For me personally, I like to use long exposures to remove distracting textures from the surface of the lake when it's really windy. If it's just a little bit of wind, a long exposure can help to make improve the reflections. A lot of people criticise us landscape photographers for doing a lot of long exposures, saying that they're a cliche, but I'm not really interested in cliche. I don't care about cliche. Cliche is just something that's been overdone throughout the community. But if you think about your photography, your own photography, then unless you're doing something like a long exposure for every single image, within the context of your own photography, I don't see it as a cliche. And let's not forget that, you know, what I try to do with my photography, I'm trying to experience the world. I'm not trying to change it. So I'm not necessarily trying to break new ground. Really, I just want to get out into this beautiful landscape where I live and to photograph it and to enjoy it. And that's what it's all about for me, photography. And the purpose really of my photography is to show off the Lake District in the best that I can, to encourage people to come here and to enjoy it for themselves, and to book a one-to-one.